How do you build a government that actually polices itself? It's a huge question, right? Today, we're digging into the ultimate referees of the Philippine government, the constitutional commissions. These are essentially the vital watchdogs and the impenetrable shields of democracy. If you want to understand how a government actually keeps its own power in check, you are exactly in the right place. Let's get right into this explainer.
Seriously, how do you referee a government? It's the absolute core problem of holding power accountable. I mean, think about it. If the players on the field are also the ones signing the referee's paycheck, or if they have the power to just, fire the ref the second they get a red card, how can the game possibly be fair? How do you make sure the heavy hitters can't just rig the system? Well, the architects of the 1987 Philippine Constitution had to solve this exact puzzle, and their answer is what we're unpacking today.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the ultimate watchdogs. Then, the shields of independence. Third, we'll break down the three commissions themselves. After that, we'll cover the rules for referees, and finally, wrap up with the global ripple effect.
All right, let's kick things off with part one, the ultimate watchdogs. The name of the game here is absolute independence.
Moving right along to part two, shields of independence. These are the macro-level safeguards that keep these watchdogs safe. So, established under Article 9 of the Constitution, the entire philosophy behind these watchdogs is uncompromising independence from the rest of the government. And to make that a reality, they are protected by four very active shields. First up, fiscal autonomy, basically financial independence. Second is security of tenure, which means protecting their jobs. Third, rulemaking power, giving them the authority to set their own procedures. And fourth, appointment power, which is the ability to hire their own personnel. They don't have to rely on outside agencies to staff their offices or dictate how they operate. They are, for all intents and purposes, entirely self-contained ecosystems.
Let's look a bit closer at that first shield, because honestly, it is arguably the most vital. The key here is fiscal autonomy. The Constitution literally dictates that their approved annual appropriations must be automatically and regularly released. Why does this matter? Well, it ensures they cannot be held hostage by the executive's power of the purse. Just imagine if a sitting president could simply withhold a commission's budget to, say, extort a favorable ruling. By guaranteeing automatic funding, the Constitution removes financial blackmail entirely from the political playbook. It's brilliant.
7. That number is crucial. It represents the strict, completely unextendable 7-year term limit for commissioners. And when I say strict, I mean absolutely absolute. There is no reappointment. Their salaries are fixed. They cannot be decreased. Actually, even if a sitting commissioner gets promoted to chairman, their total time served in both roles combined cannot exceed this hard cap of 7 years. You get 7 years to do your job with integrity, and then you're out. No campaigning to keep your seat, no reappointment, and definitely no hitting the snooze button on your tenure. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, with all this independence, are they just completely above the law? The answer is no, but the mechanism for checking them is highly specific. Any aggrieved party has 30 days to appeal a commission's ruling to the Supreme Court. But, and this is a massive but, it is only through a petition for certiorari. The Supreme Court isn't just double-checking their math. The court is only looking for grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction. Basically, the bar to overturn their decisions is intentionally set incredibly high, just to respect that autonomy we talked about.
All right, on to part 3, the three commissions explained. Let's look at the key domains they guard. So, there are 3 distinct commissions guarding 3 absolutely critical domains of a functioning state: the people who work for the government, the democratic process of choosing leaders, and the money used to run the country: the civil service, the ballot, and the public funds. Let's break them down one by one.
First up is the Civil Service Commission, or the CSC. And they aren't just some glorified HR department. They are the architects of a bureaucracy built on merit, not patronage. Their core mandate is to build a career service founded on merit, efficiency, and integrity. They adopt measures to promote morale, responsiveness, progressiveness, and courtesy among all government workers. Essentially, they make sure the government machine runs efficiently, completely regardless of who happens to occupy the presidential palace at the time.
Next, we have the Commission on Elections, commonly known as the COMELEC. This is the ultimate shield for the sanctity of the ballot. They enforce and administer all laws regarding elections, plebiscites, initiatives, referendums, and recalls. It's a huge job. They hold exclusive original jurisdiction over electoral contests for regional, provincial, and city officials, and they also handle appeals for municipal and barangay disputes. Bottom line, when it comes to the voice of the voters, COMELEC is the absolute, undisputed referee.
The third watchdog is the Commission on Audit, the COA. And the COA doesn't just casually track the money, they have the absolute authority to examine, audit, and settle every single cent of government revenue, expenditures, and property. Their reach spans all subdivisions, agencies, and government-owned or controlled corporations. They even have the exclusive authority to define their own auditing techniques. They are, without a doubt, the supreme protectors of the public purse.
That brings us to Section 4, strict rules for referees. Let's look at the micro-level constraints. When you give individuals this much unchecked power within their domains, you really have to match the tool to the task. All commissioners must be natural-born citizens, at least 35 years old, and they cannot have run for office in the immediately preceding election. But beyond that, the specific qualifications vary wildly. The CSC requires proven capacity in public administration. The COMELEC, because it deals with super complex election law, requires a majority of its 7 members to be lawyers with at least 10 years of practice. And the COA demands certified public accountants or lawyers with 10 years of experience. And here's a brilliant little detail. At no time can all COA members belong to the exact same profession, which ensures a diverse, really rigorous scrutiny of the nation's finances.
But getting the job is only half the battle. Keeping it requires walking an incredibly strict ethical line. The Constitution outlines absolute prohibitions during their tenure. No holding any other office. No engaging in the private practice of any profession. They cannot actively manage any business affected by their office, and absolutely no direct or indirect financial interest in any government contract, franchise, or privilege. Simply put, our referees are never ever allowed to bet on the game, and they can't have any side hustles that could even slightly compromise their impartiality. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the global ripple effect. Let's talk about international impact. It's really easy to view a constitution as a purely internal document, but let's look at COMELEC on the international stage for a second. Under Article 9C, financial contributions from foreign governments to political parties or candidates are explicitly classified as interference in national affairs. The COMELEC is constitutionally mandated to refuse registration to any political party supported by a foreign government, and accepting those funds is actual grounds for cancellation. So the COMELEC doesn't just manage local voting lines, it actively preserves state sovereignty. It acts as a powerful domestic shield against foreign political subversion. The Commission on Audit also plays a massive international role here. The COA's audit jurisdiction extends to foreign loans and development grants received by the government. Think about it. When international monetary institutions or bilateral partners lend money or give grants, they really need to know it isn't just vanishing into thin air. The COA proves to the world that international financial obligations and sovereign debts are being managed transparently and, most importantly, lawfully. So this brings us to a crucial cause and effect chain. Step 1. Strict domestic rules, like the shields and qualifications we just discussed, ensure independence. Step 2. That independence forces a genuinely transparent and accountable government. And Step 3. That transparency generates international trust. Foreign observers rely on the COMELEC to validate the country's democratic legitimacy. Meanwhile, foreign investors and institutions rely on the COA to ensure financial integrity. This domestic rigor directly translates to the state's standing in international organizations and its eligibility for foreign development grants. These constitutional commissions, the CSC, the COMELEC, and the COA, they aren't just bureaucratic offices. They are the structural pillars holding up the integrity of the state itself. Which leaves us with a final thought. If a nation's global reputation, its trustworthiness, and its democratic legitimacy are built directly on the backs of its domestic watchdogs, well, how strong are the shields protecting yours? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.